Good morning, children. In today's class, we shall proceed with the first chapter. So before we continue, let's recall whatever we have studied in our previous class. So in previous class, we have studied about nutrition, what is nutrition, why the living organisms require nutrition, and since we are going to study the different types of nutrition in case of plants, we have classified the plant family members into different types. And under that, we have studied the very first kind of nutrition, that is autotrophic kind of nutrition, which is seen in case of green plants. And you know very well, these green plants don't depend on any other organisms as they can prepare their own food. So we got to know what is the reason for this. So the reason is because they carry out a particular process called as photosynthesis, which help them in preparing their own food. So we also learned what are the things exactly happening during the process of photosynthesis and what are the components required and what are the components produced at the end of the process. So to continue with photosynthesis, so as this process requires certain components to produce the end products or the food, so this can be represented in a form of an equation, that is the components required and the other part shows the end product formed due to this particular reaction happened during this process. So what is the very first component the plants require is the carbon dioxide, which can be denoted in its molecular formula, that is CO2. So along with carbon dioxide, another important component the plants require is water, which can be denoted as H2O. So along with these two components, the plant should also absorb the sun's energy, which is coming from the sunlight, and that is done with the help of a green pigment called chlorophyll. So the final end product is going to be the food, which is produced in the form of glucose, that is C6H12O6, which comes under the group of carbohydrates. So you know sugars comes under the group of carbohydrates with the liberation of oxygen molecules. So this entire reaction represents the photosynthesis process. So as I said, the green pigment called chlorophyll is very much required for the absorption of sun's energy. Then, what about the plants like croton, which doesn't have the exact green coloration of the leaf? Do they also come under the autotrophic kind of nutrition? Yes, if you see the pictures of few leaves of a plant, they don't have the exact green coloration, where you can see yellowish, reddish with different shades of color. So, but still, they are also capable of carrying the process of photosynthesis, and they do come under the group of autotrophic kind of nutrition. So how is this possible? This is possible because the green color has been masked by the other pigments on the leaf. So though the green color is not visible, so these leaves of the plant do possess that green color or the green pigment, which enable them to carry out the process of photosynthesis. Apart from these plants, there is another plant family member which do come under the group of autotrophic kind of nutrition. So that organism, you call it as algae. So these algae are slimy green colored kind of organisms where you can find them in the wet or moist places. You call them as algae. So these algae are also green in color due to the presence of green pigment called chlorophyll. So due to this presence of chlorophyll, so they are also capable of producing photosynthesis and hence prepare their own food. So with this we can state that the organisms like Green plants and algae come under the group of autotrophic mode of nutrition. So here arises a question where if you could recall your previous knowledge, you would have studied that the different kinds of nutrition like carbohydrates, proteins and fats we get from plants. Okay, we do get from plants. So henceforth we consume the plant products. But if you get back to the process of photosynthesis, you studied the food is prepared only in the form of glucose, which is your carbohydrate. Then how is the plant is capable of producing proteins and fats? The carbohydrate produced by the plant during the process of photosynthesis can be later converted into fats. As you know, carbohydrates and fats are made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen with a variation in the number of carbon molecules, hydrogen molecules and oxygen molecules. But what about protein? If the plant wants to produce protein, it requires the nitrogen molecule. So where does the plant get this nitrogen molecule from? The plant gets the nitrogen molecule from the soil with the help of a bacteria. You call those bacteria as nitrogen fixing bacteria. But when there is plenty of nitrogen available in the atmosphere or in the air, why not the plant able to consume the nitrogen from the air directly with the help of stomata? Because the plants cannot absorb the gaseous nitrogen just like the carbon dioxide and oxygen, as the nitrogen has to be converted to its inorganic form with the help of bacteria present in the soil. So once this nitrogen has been fixed by the nitrogen fixing bacteria into the soil, into inorganic form, now the plant is capable of absorbing that nitrogen with the help of its roots. Now with this inorganic form of nitrogen, the plants can produce the proteins in it. For example, you can see in the slide where the gaseous nitrogen is absorbed by the bacteria, and with the help of the oxygen which is present in the soil, the bacteria converts the nitrogen plus oxygen into nitrate, that is NO3, and this nitrate is absorbed by the plants which is in the inorganic form, and later this nitrate combines with the other components present in the plant which is produced during the photosynthesis, that is your glucose, which is containing carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. So this inorganic form converts with those components. So once the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen gets the nitrogen atom, so that gets converted to proteins. So by consuming some of the edible plants, as we are heterotrophs, so we do get the nutrients like carbohydrates, proteins, also fats. So in the next class, we shall study about the different modes of nutrition in heterotrophic kinds of plants.